Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to the Food for the Faithful channel with me, Bill Reimer, your reluctant prophet. I have a compelling argument to make today. Today, we are witnessing a libidinous need to do harm among those who claim to have philanthropic intentions. It is often said that one should follow the money to discover the source of the corruption, but money and power are mere tools being used by those engaged in social engineering to hurt humanity under the guise of being socially responsible. Remember those kids in the playground who got off on pulling the wings off of flies or hurting little animals because the tiny creatures were incapable of defending themselves against that kid's psychopathic tendencies? Well, the same species of psychopath is grown up to find their social niche in doing harm under the guise of philanthropy and social engineering. So let's look at the subjective lie, how governments are turning citizens into lizards. We've all felt it, that low-grade hum of dread that never really quite goes away. Not panic, not terror, just constant gnawing unease. And it's not random. It's not random because it's engineered. Modern governments don't need tanks or gulags anymore. They found something cheaper, cleaner: subjectivity. The idea that truth isn't fixed, that reality bends to consensus, that what's true today can be problematic tomorrow. And every time they sell that lie, they flip a switch in your head. From your prefrontal cortex, where logic, empathy, and planning reside, back into the amygdala, where fear, rage, and survival instincts survives. Welcome to lizard mode. Step 1 in this process: blur the facts. It starts small. A politician says this isn't about facts, it's about how you feel. A news headline reads, "Experts disagree," even when evidence which could disprove the sanctioned narrative is being deliberately ignored. Social media algorithms reward outrage over accuracy. Suddenly, the world isn't made of gravity and math. It's made up of opinions. And if truth is just opinion, then nothing's safe. Not your job, not your rights, not your identity. They're all up for vote. You start scanning for threats everywhere. The neighbor who supports the wrong political candidate, the teacher who refused to use the correct pronoun, or the headline that might mean you might be next. Fear isn't loud. Not at all, it's quiet. It's your amygdala whispering, they could rewrite you tomorrow. Step 2, weaponize belonging. Humans are pack animals. We evolved to conform. Exile meant death. Governments know this, so they don't force you. They just make nonconformity hurt. Real bad. Call out a lie, you're divisive. Question the narrative, you're dangerous. Refuse to play along, you're toxic. The pack turns, and suddenly, the prefrontal cortex, your reasoning center, feels like a liability. Better to shut it down, better to rage, better to scream along. That's not weakness, that's biology. The amygdala doesn't negotiate, it just wants to survive. This is the literal manifestation of Edward Monk's Den Skrik, the scream. The fact that it was painted in Norway couldn't have been painted anywhere else. Step 3, keep the fear simmering. They don't want you terrified, just anxious, constantly anxious. A little cortisol drip keeps you compliant, so they feed you contradictions. We're safe, but we're also under siege. We're free, but we're also oppressed. The science is settled until it isn't. Each flip-flop erodes trust. Each erosion pushes you deeper into the lizard brain. Fight, flee, or freeze. Never think, never question, just react. And the beauty of it, you do the work. You police yourself. You self-censor. You unfriend the skeptic. You cheer when the wrong person gets canceled. You become the enforcer. Lizard people don't need chains. No, they build their own cages. The end game. This isn't a conspiracy, it's control. A population in amygdala mode doesn't vote rationally. It votes emotionally. It doesn't debate. It denounces. It doesn't solve problems. It punishes those who attempt to solve them. And once you're there, you're easy. No need for gulags. Just keep the lie alive. There's no objective truth. Reality is what we say. You're either with us or against us. The prefrontal cortex dies quietly. The amygdala takes over. And suddenly you're not a citizen anymore. You're a reflex, a follower, a lizard, as I called it the other day. The new species that I've coined is Lizardus erectus. But here's the glitch. Some of us, like myself, just simply refuse. We hate the blur. We hate the fear. We hate being told it depends. Because we know truth isn't subjective. It's either true or it isn't. And the second we say that out loud, the spell cracks. So keep saying it. Keep standing outside the pack. Keep your lights on. Because the lizard brain only wins if everyone joins the chorus. And as for me, I'm not singing. I hope that you will refuse to echo the lies too. But who invented the end game? This is where it gets really interesting. I've spoken about this often, but I'm going to make it clear one more time because I know it's not sinking in. Here are the big names who shape postmodern cultural relativism, because that's what it's called. That's the challenge of objective reality. It's called postmodern cultural relativism. Folks who argue that truth, morality, and meaning aren't universal, but depend on context, power, language, and culture. Michel Foucault, power-knowledge combo. Everything from prisons to sexuality is shaped by shifting discourses. No objective truth, just who controls the narrative. Jacques Derrida, deconstruction king. Words never pin down meaning. Everything's slippery, full of contradictions. Relativism baked into language itself. Words no longer meaning what they mean. Jean-Francois Lyotard coined postmodern condition, said grand narratives, such as Marxism, science, and progress, are dead. Knowledge is local, fragmented, legit only in its own game. Richard Rorty, American pragmatist twist, truth is what works in a community, not what matches reality. Irony and solidarity over absolute foundations. Jean Baudrillard, hyper-reality guy. Reality's been replaced by signs and simulations. Culture is a hall of mirrors. Nothing's real anymore. Frederick Jameson, Marxist lens on postmodernism. Late capitalism turns everything into pastiche, depthless images. Relativism as symptom, not solution. I mean, who could even understand what they mean with these words? And finally, Judith Butler, gender as performance. Identity is not fixed, it's scripted by culture, pushes relativism into the body and its norms. But if you want, the purest relativists, Foucault and Derrida, are the spine. Everything else rifted off of them. We must ask, why would anyone wish to pull the carpet out from underneath the feet of our understanding of reality itself? So here's a scriptural perspective. From a Christian's perspective, the idea that truth is relative is consistently rejected as a satanic lie, which of course it is. The Bible presents truth as objective, grounded in God's character, and knowable rather than something that shifts with personal preference or cultural mood. Here are the main ways Scripture addresses this idea. Number one, truth is objective and rooted in God. The Bible does not treat truth as something humans invent. It presents truth as something that exists independently of us because it comes from God. John 14, verse 6, I am the way and the truth and the life. Jesus does not say he teaches truth or offers one version of it. He identifies himself as the truth. Numbers 23, verse 19. God is not described as flexible or contradictory. His word is dependable. In biblical thought, truth is not relative because God is not relative. Number two, relativism is portrayed as moral confusion. Scripture often describes societies that reject objective truth as drifting into disorder and injustice, which we can see around us every day. Judges 21, verse 25. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. This verse is certainly not praise. It summarizes a period of moral collapse in Israel. Isaiah 5, verse 20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. This directly addresses a reversal of moral standards, one of the outcomes of relativism. The Bible links of everyone defining truth for themselves with social and spiritual breakdown. Number three, the Bible anticipates resistance to absolute truth. Scripture explicitly warns that people will prefer subjective or comforted beliefs over truth. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 3 and 4. People will gather teachers who tell them what they want to hear and will turn away from the truth. John 13, verse 38. Pilates version, or Pilate's version, rather, I'm sorry. What is truth? It is often read as cynical or dismissive, reflecting skepticism rather than sincere inquiry. Obviously, Pilate didn't want to know the truth. Relativism, in his view, is not presented as intellectual progress, but as of avoidance of uncomfortable truth. 4. Relativism is linked to rejecting God, not ignorance. The Bible does not frame relativism primarily as a lack of information, but rather as a choice. Romans 1, verses 18 to 25 describe people who suppress the truth and exchange it for substitutes that suit them better. This passage suggests that denying truth is tied to rejecting God's authority, not merely philosophical agreement. In summary, according to the Bible, truth is real, objective, and grounded in God. Relativism is portrayed as confusion, not freedom. Denying truth is linked to moral and spiritual consequences. The proper response is faithfulness to truth paired with humility and love. So here are some memes that I have created that pinpoint the nauseating contradictions of postmodern cultural relativism. Here's my first meme. You're going to love it. I exist to distill truth, to cure the woke mind virus. Money and power are mere tools to fulfill psychopaths' libidinous need to do harm. My second meme. Limited responsible government becomes functionally impossible when subjective feelings trump objective reality. My third meme. No one with good intentions appeals to emotion as a substitute for using reason based on ethics, epistemology, and ontology. And my fourth meme. A psyop attacking the reason and empathy of the prefrontal cortex is allowing the fear and rage of the amygdala to assume control in society today. That's what's happening. Fear and rage have assumed control, and no one can tell what the truth is anymore. So, these are things to think and pray about on this March the 9th. God bless you all. Please share this with your friends. Leave your comments. Make sure you've subscribed. Nothing I ever produce will ever be hidden behind a paywall. The truth of Christ cannot be priced. That sacrifice, the greatest sacrifice ever made for humanity, cannot have a price applied to it. And I sincerely distrust people who claim to preach the gospel who want you to pay to hear it. You know what I'm talking about. God bless you.